Certified Professional, which stands for International Association of Facilitators. Since 2018, I've started a book series on architecting collaboration, and my latest book, in co-authorship with Martin Duffy and other renowned digital facilitators and guest co-authors, is titled Beyond Virtual Meetings. It's all about the importance of the digital tools that can extend and augment the power of you as a facilitator and a meeting host in virtual online meetings, but also on the hybrid meetings that are going to be so much needed in this post-pandemic era. Along with my co-author Martin Duffy and esteemed PhD colleague, we host Talk to Your Meeting Daughters, a series of hosted conversations with meeting experts that can advise you about how to transition to this new normal and take advantage of this incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make the organization of your meetings more sustainable and effective. Please stand by as the next show will start momentarily.
Mindful of our time, guys, we're approaching 50 minutes, believe it or not, and time has really flown on this one. I normally try to do a very quick summary, but what a rich conversation. It started with a question: how do we build a positive organization meeting positive organization culture? But actually what kicked us off was Gustavo wandering around in the outback, not sure where he was, and wondering about how the mountain lions might come and have him for breakfast. But in actual fact, that was really provocative thought, because that brought us into managing the unknown, dealing with the possibilities of the unknown. But then before you can do that well, you need to become comfortable with the unknown. And the idea then of culture constraining organization meetings because of our rigidity with the format, with the method, with the process, and the possibility then that we might just be losing sight of, but why are we meeting? Is the form of meeting that we're actually proposing to use best fit to meet the outcomes that we're actually trying to achieve? Extending that, we talked more then about the idea of organizations shifting towards more ad hoc type meetings. Elise, you touched on this point for us, and that can be a symptom, a clear enough symptom, that actually the current structured way that we have of managing and running our organizational meetings just may not be fit for purpose. So people spontaneously move to an ad hoc form in order to meet their real needs. And their real needs then might help to focus them in more productive use of their time, rather than sticking with staid or stale meeting procedures that just don't meet expectations or needs. Elise, you also then took us into the idea of the 3 levels in the organization. So the executive C-suite, the teams-based level, but then the concept of iterations. And Gustavo, you picked up on the importance and significance of that iteration piece, which then becomes a key driver of managing the organization's cultural shifts through its organizational meetings. I mentioned then the possibility that meetings can be seen as windows to the soul, to the cultural soul of the organization. Both of you agreed with that concept or that proposition. And I suppose where that took us in our conversation was then to say, actually, maybe when we're convening our meetings, and maybe to become meeting positive, maybe we need to shift the focus of the questions that we're trying to address or trying to answer within any particular or given meeting, either a meeting individually or a flow of meetings that might happen within a team or a group or an organization. So shifting our focus to what question are we trying to answer might be a really significant point to building a meeting positive culture? Because by addressing that question, we have a significant chance of actually carrying out meetings in a way that meet people's needs. And Gustavo, you focused in our latter part of our conversation on focus on the outcomes, focus on what are we trying to achieve, and then matching how we go about conducting our business to actually deliver that outcome that we're actually looking for. A final point that I think both of you made in slightly different ways is that managing conflict and consent is actually a fundamental and a core part of what an organization needs to do and what meetings are used as a vehicle to do. But most importantly, a key takeaway that I'm getting from it is respect for the individuals can be fundamentally different to having differences of ideas or differences of opinion. And we can absolutely figure out how to manage our differences without ever compromising the fundamental respect that we show for every individual that's participating. I hope that summary has done some justice to a really, really interesting conversation.
It was great to have you here. Martin, perhaps you'd like to summarize a little bit and we wrap up with the last.
Yeah, just I suppose the first thing that struck me, you kind of opened, Charles, by taking us into the context and the connections that people have. You identified three different elements. One is the physical capacity or physical proximity. Two is creating the time, and then three was creating a free environment, or an environment in which free exchange can happen unimpeded. We then talked a little bit about identifying the gaps between people, particularly then you talked about the isolation of the leader and the sense that some leaders have this developing sense of isolation from their teams, from their groups. And when I asked about why was that isolation developing, you identified again three key elements, one of which was social media, but the other was the idea of people physically moving jobs, moving locations, moving home, but equally moving groups. And you spoke a little bit about faith and moving their faith groups. Now, irrespective of what religious beliefs you might have, the key point is that when people are moving from a known community, whatever the community is, now we end up with the possibilities of greater and greater isolation. But I suppose the key thing that I'm taking out of our conversation is that the interpersonal connections coming from shared experiences, from shared emotional grounding, from shared intellectual exposure, that those elements create the foundation on which trust ultimately can get built. And I suppose the final analogy, which I really love, is that it doesn't take much water to get growth in a desert. And as a really simple summary of, are we in a hopeful or a hopeless environment? I would share your optimism and say, actually, a teacup of water will do an awful lot to build an awful lot of growth in a desert.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Martin. And over to you, Charles. Last piece of advice for our viewers and whoever they are.
I'm happy to give advice, but I want to make sure that your listeners know that I've written several books on the subject. And so if their interest is piqued whatsoever, there is more. They're the books that are being used around the world and some of the world's most famous brands to make their teams more effective and to connect people in ways that are supportive in a crisis time. My first book is The Art of Community. And then I wrote a book called Storytelling for Leadership, because in all leadership, bring people together is their powerful stories that make that happen. And then lastly, my latest book on the subject is Building Brand Communities. In this case, any organization, for-profit, nonprofit, political, that has a brand, how to bring people together that are important for success. And then last piece of advice, let's go start at the beginning. All community starts at the same place, an invitation. And my work is a request to spend time where someone knows that someone cares if they show up. And I'm convinced that if everybody listening right now invites 5 people they already want to spend more time with, just makes the request to spend that time, walking around a park, eating a bowl of noodles, playing with dogs, all count. That's the beginning of relationships that can grow much deeper.
Hey, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching us today. Charles Vogel, our guest speaker today, was an amazing masterclass. Thank you so much, Martin, as usual, for the wonderful summary of the conversation. And for our viewers, you want to know more about Charles Vogel, just follow him on this event page. He's our guest speaker for today. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. It was really great to be here with all of you. Bye for now.
Thanks very much. Bye all.